Yes, I can.
So I am Amy Fagan. I am the chair of the Lunar Exploration Analysis Group. Because that's a bit of a mouthful, we go by the name LEAG. So Amanda, if you could switch to the next slide, or actually, I guess Sam, you're presenting. Can you go to the next slide, please? Great. LEAG does. So we are here to provide analysis to NASA on issues in support of lunar exploration. And so these can be things that are specific from NASA. They can be things driven more from a grassroots effort from the community. But anything related to lunar exploration, it could be science, technology, commerce, operations, again, anything related to lunar exploration. But we are a community organization. And so it entails people from academia, people from industry, from the government, and we're here to represent that community and kind of be the voice of the community. There are other analysis groups as well, so for different bodies, and so we represent the lunar one. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, so how is it that we provide analysis? One of the ways that we provide analysis is through specific action teams. And specific action teams are pulled together either at a formal request from NASA or are put together from the LEAG Executive Committee in response to a community identified need. And so I'm going to talk about two of those very briefly. The first is the Artemis Analog Objective Specific Action Team. This was from a specific request from NASA to address exactly what's in the name. What are the analog objectives that we need to be looking at to prepare us for Artemis? This was a fairly short duration specific action team from December of 21 to January of 22. If you look at the QR code, you can get to the report that came out of that on the LEAG website. I also want to note that this specific action team will be reconvening soon to revisit some of the near-term priorities. Sarah Noble spoke about Jet 3. We're going to hear a little bit about further jet teams from Kelsey a little bit later. And these are just one of the ways that NASA is helping to address those objectives that are included in this report. So this is one of those ways that we are helping to provide that analysis. Next slide, please. All right, this is an example of a different type of specific action team. So this one, which you'll hear about more in the next talk, is the Continuous Lunar Orbital Capabilities Specific Action Team. This was not from a formal request from NASA. This was a community-defined need from annual meeting findings that said, hey, you know, we need a plan for what comes after the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And so, again, you'll hear more about this in the next talk, but it does have quite a few overarching findings, including that there needs to be continuity of capabilities, that there are different ways of approaching these different problems, and that these orbital capabilities should be part of the integrated lunar science strategy. Again, there's a QR code, and for the report, there's also some fairly large tensors, traceability tensors that you can access on the LEAG website for this report as well. So you'll hear more about this in the next talk, so we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Another way that LEAG helps to represent the community and provide analysis is that we respond to requests for information. One that we've already heard about today is the Moon to Mars objective. So we did respond to the RFI. We're busy. And so those comments, just like everyone else in the community, went into refining those objectives. We also had Joel Kearns to the annual meeting in 2022 to speak to us a little bit about how those objectives were tweaked from the feedback from the community. There was another RFI from last summer from the White House OSTP that was requesting information about research and development priorities over the next 10 or 50 years related to the moon. and cislunar space specifically, and also key technical standards to develop. And so the LEAG Executive Committee also responded to this. I have copy and paste from the final report that OSTP put out, and I've highlighted a portion in here where they are specifically calling out LEAG, that the priorities that they need to be working with are identified in the decadal survey and analyses from LEAG. So again, yay, LEAG is very important and represents the community. You should be part of it. Next slide, please. I mentioned the annual meeting, and the next slide is, don't go to it yet, Sam. The next slide is actually going to be talking about this year's annual meeting, but let's talk about last year's annual meeting. In 2022, we had 6 actionable findings. So from the end of each meeting, the executive committee kind of compiles all of the feedback and discussions and generates findings. We had 6 actionable findings that were presented to the Planetary Science Advisory Council last year. You can read these using that QR code. It'll take you to those findings. But I have a giant magenta arrow pointing to just one of them because I don't have time to go through all of these. And it's that LEAG encourages the establishment of a joint specific action team with the extraterrestrial materials analysis group to examine the needs of persistent and sustainable lunar sample return through human and robotic exploration. And Sarah Noble has commented a few times that this is something that we are working towards with NASA. So this will be soon. So keep an eye out for that. Next slide, please, Sam. Our next annual meeting is happening this September. A save the date announcement has gone out pretty soon. I think in the next week or so, we will have the request for abstracts that will go out. So here's a summary of the different types of things that we're looking for in abstracts for the annual meeting. It's a hybrid meeting, so you can join us physically at the Applied Physics Laboratory, or you can join us online. But we have requests related to lunar science and exploration, so you can see what's listed there. But something that is not listed there is related to science that can be achieved at the Artemis Base Camp. So if you were listening on the first section today, Nikki Fox commented about LEAG being a place to compile white papers related to science at the Artemis Base Camp. And so that is going to be a bullet point that's going to be added in there in that abstract request. So we listened, we're adding it in. If you are an early career researcher, please keep a lookout for information about applying for travel funding and mentoring activities. So that'll be coming out soon. And then for everybody, please nominate a colleague for the LEAG Service Award. This was started in 2021. We've had it then for 2 years. We've recognized 2 people each year, and we need people to nominate their colleagues. So that information will be coming out soon as well. Last slide, please, Sam. Hopefully, I've managed to convince you and demonstrate that LEAG does a lot of really important things for the community. So you're probably thinking, it sounds really great. I want to be a part of it. That's great, because we need you. So the positions on the executive committee usually are around 2 to 3 years. Most of those are cycling off very soon. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a call out looking for applications to join the LEAG Executive Committee, one of which is the LEAG Chair, so that's my position. We have the Human Exploration Chair, the Technology Chair, the Science Chair, the Operations Chair, and that's who puts together the annual meeting, is the main contact for that. One may be very appealing to you. Equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have it named as the EDI chair, but this also includes accessibility. And then an astrophysics liaison. So please keep a lookout for that. It's going to be coming out soon. But if you have questions in the meantime, I have my email right there. Between the F and the A, it's hard to tell, but that's an L. So it's AL Fagan at wcu.edu. And that's it.